Being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com.
Good evening, America. Happy Monday, and welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from the nation's capital. We're going to go solo tonight. Amanda Head is out of pocket, so we're going to get to that in a second. Some breaking news before we get to everything that's on script tonight. Just a few minutes ago, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, announced that all ICE agents in Minneapolis will now be equipped with body cameras so that every aspect of their actions will be captured by the United States government, not just protesters with different angles with their phone cameras. This is a really popular idea. She worked with Tom Homan, President Trump's border czar, to get this implemented today. She announced it just a few minutes ago. You can get the latest on that over at justthenews.com. We just moved a big news alert there. Now we got some other big news to get to, and that's about that FBI raid on a Georgia warehouse that occurred last Wednesday. About 700 boxes of ballots were collected there by FBI agents. Our reporting here at Just the News has uncovered that the FBI search warrant approving that raid cited a law that prohibits fraud by election workers. The search warrant for the Fulton County election hub near Atlanta, which is the major city in Georgia, was signed by a federal magistrate, and it specifically cited two sections of Title 52 of the U.S. Code. Specifically, the sections that were cited ban someone who knowingly and willfully deprives, defrauds, or attempts to deprive or defraud the residents of a state of a fair and impartially conducted election process, either through the procurement or submission of voter registration applications that are known by a person to be material or false, fictitious, or fraudulent under the laws of the state in which the election is held. In other words, the focus of this investigation, the focus of that raid, the reason that a federal judge approved that raid was that they're looking at possible crimes related by election workers and the administration of that election in 2020. That's the one that President Trump for years has raised concern. We're going to have more on this in just a little bit, but we've got a couple other things I want to mention. We're seeing a lot more now on the horizon with what the left is going to do. They're going to go into churches and interrupt services. They're going to go into synagogues like they did in Long Island last week and interrupt Jewish religious proceedings. They're going to block ICE enforcement. I just want to remind everybody, when you look at the Statue of Liberty, we always know about the torch. We say that torch is the light, the beacon of light for the world of freedom. But in her other hand, there is a law book, and it is a reminder that America is not only built on freedom, but on the laws and the rule of law that ensures those freedoms exist generation to generation. As we look out today, the Justice Department has some very big decisions to face in the near future. Will they charge, as Kash Patel suggested the other day on this show, the people who are funding and organizing and providing material support and logistical support to the ICE protesters across this country? Will they charge those people? Will they create a deterrence to the money? Will they pull the nonprofit status, the tax-exempt status of some of the groups involved in this anarchy, in this violence? Those are moments that we're going to learn pretty soon what's going to come of them. We're also likely to learn in the next few days who the FBI interviewed when they decided to raid that Georgia house. I want to put these two things on your radar. Will the Justice Department charge the nonprofit groups and the organizers of these anti-ICE protests? And will we get to see the unsealed affidavit of who the FBI interviewed before they requested that search warrant? Whatever those interviews show were compelling enough that a magistrate approved those search warrants. Those are two things I think we can learn a lot about this week. I want to put them on your radar. Now, we've got a great start to the show. Joining us from the great state of Michigan is Congressman Tom Barrett, who's in the middle of a lot of these big debates against a brand new constitutional amendment we're going to get to. Congressman, great to have you on the show today.
Matt, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to join you for a little while tonight.
We love having you on, and I love when people come up with ideas. We've been talking about lawfare. We've been talking about frustration of federal judges who rule one way and then constantly get overruled by higher courts because they're not following the law. You've got a brand new proposal, a constitutional amendment that would limit federal judges' terms, which are currently lifetime appointments, to 2 decades. Tell us about it and where it's headed.
Absolutely. I just unrolled this proposal in the last couple of days, and really this was born out of a broader reform agenda that I've been tackling this year. I spent my first year in Congress in 2025 really witnessing and observing a lot of things that I think are broken in American politics right now, that the federal government isn't really answering the call of the people that ultimately are who we govern, and the consent of the governed is so critical to the role that we have in government and through elected officials. And I've put together a number of reforms. One that I just unveiled this week that you talked about is making new federal judicial appointments a 20-year term instead of a lifetime appointment. If you think back to the founding of our country and the signing of the Constitution and really creating this new form of government, 20 years probably was a lifetime appointment at that point. But it's no longer the case right now, and people are serving for decade after decade after decade, really becoming further and further out of touch with the people that ultimately answer for the decisions that these people make. And to me, it is something that is a step in the right direction, and it allows for, occasional turnover within the federal courts while still providing a firm independence from the day-to-day politics that we want to see.
Yeah. What's the sentiments among your colleagues since you first introduced it? I think this is going to be incredibly popular with the American public, but how about in the rank and file of the Republican Party and your fellow lawmakers?
It's interesting. I think people often don't want to change the status quo, so it's something that I'm expecting to have some good, kind of debate and whatnot. And I'm actually coupling it with a existing provision that I co-sponsored as well, another constitutional amendment to lock in the Supreme Court at 9 justices. There's always this threat. We're going to see the Supreme Court packed by usually the Democrats calling for it, to be totally candid, to add more justices to the Supreme Court to get different outcomes that they want to see. To me, we ought to lock in the Supreme Court at 9 justices. And then we also, I think, can have a reasonable period of time for federal judges to serve, and then they can move on to other opportunities in their life or go on and retire if that's what they ultimately decide to do. And then the other provision we're unrolling in this is actually one that would require a supermajority of Congress to bring a new state into the union. Right now, it would take just a simple majority in Congress to create a new state. That's something that all of us are very sensitive to. And you could see one party or another trying to pack new states into the union, add more senators to the U.S. Senate, add more electoral votes to that particular party's interests. And to me, destabilizing that balance should require a higher threshold to change in our country. So these are all kind of broader reforms that we're looking at that I think are important to do, and ultimately, hopefully, will a little push in the direction of challenging the status quo.
Yeah, I think the American people want a lot more challenge to that status quo, and this you're on the path to, I think, doing that. There's another thing, and you obviously served our military. We're a helicopter pilot. I think I can't believe the lack of attention that this report got. I think it's so much more important. But the after-action report on that horrible collision that occurred over the Potomac River here in the nation's capital, so much neglect, so much failure by the Biden administration. The warning signs were blinking red for a long time, with the FAA controllers being overworked. But there's another part of this, which is technology can solve a large part of this. You have, I think, a really great solution. You may have to prod the bureaucracy to take it, so that's why you go the legislative route. But tell us what you have in mind for preventing future mid-air collisions like the one that occurred here.
And this was really important to me. I flew Black Hawk helicopters in the Army, just like the one that collided with that American Airlines flight just over 1 year ago. We had the 1-year anniversary last week. I had enrolled a bill that ultimately we got passed through the National Defense Authorization Act back at the end of the year, that was signed by President Trump, that would require the Department of Defense to begin looking at the same collision avoidance systems that our civilian airlines have. So that American Airlines flight had the collision avoidance system embedded within it. but the Army Black Hawk helicopter did not. And that system only operates at its optimal sense when both aircraft have it on board. And that could have alerted the crews in both aircraft to an impending collision that I believe very likely could have prevented this tragedy from happening. Now, because the military doesn't have this on board, that system wasn't able to operate in the way in which it's designed, and therefore did not alert the crews in a timely way of this impending collision. Now, there were a lot of other failures, as you pointed out, a lot of other things that should have happened that didn't, and a lot of things that are lessons learned out of this. But I got that bill signed into the NDAA. It was a really important, critical first step in that process. And then from there, we're looking at accelerating the advancement of what they call the next generation collision avoidance system, which would reduce some of the false alarms and other things and other low altitude issues where that system doesn't operate in the way it's supposed to. So we're looking at advancing that. And then the last piece, I introduced a bill on the anniversary of this collision that would prevent the Department of Defense aircraft from turning off the system that is a geolocation system that's very critical, gives very precise location for aircraft. That's required for airplanes and airlines to be using at all times. The Department of Defense has a waiver for sensitive missions, which makes a lot of sense, but that system was turned off for the entire portion of the flight that Black Hawk helicopter was conducting. Once they were out of the sensitive portion of the flight, I think it's appropriate that they turn that system back on to alert the other aircraft around them and air traffic control and others to their positions so you don't see these incidents happening in the future.
So important and all common sense. And I want to ask, we now know that the Biden Transportation Department seemed to be aware and comfortable with the fact that they had a problem with all of these flight controllers and being overworked and understaffed. Do you have confidence that the Trump Transportation Department, Sean Duffy, the secretary, is on this and that we're getting the right staffing now and the right resourcing going forward?
Yes, and we have put resources behind recruiting and retaining more air traffic controllers and training more, bringing more in, for example, from the military who learned that skill set there, just like I learned how to fly aircraft in the military, and that's a transferable skill that many of my colleagues I served with were able to take on to the civilian airline world. We want to recruit air traffic controllers from the military as well to put that experience to use in the civilian space and work in those jobs. I mean, they are stressful jobs. They take a lot of skill, but also bringing in new technology so that some of the archaic and manual ways in which they are doing the management of airspace can be brought up to new modern technology that would allow them to do that. Secretary Duffy has been adamant about upgrading and updating that. President Trump has talked about the deficiencies within our national airspace and safety and really all of those things that are so critical to overhaul. And we're looking at ways in which we can improve that. We took a big first step when we passed the Working Families Tax Cut back in July of last year. And that's the first step in this process that we're looking to really modernize and upgrade the FAA and our air traffic controllers and keep the air traveling public safe. This is something that I have a particular interest in, given my background flying aircraft in the military, that I want to make sure that we keep everyone safe, because that's what all of us expect. And we should be proud of the fact that air travel is still the safest form of travel in the world and in the country, but that doesn't mean we can't make sure that we're taking steps to move that in the direction of safety. And too often it's sad, but the reality is when we have a tragic outcome like we did over the Potomac River just over a year ago, that often is what inspires change to come along. And we have to take lessons learned from those incidents and make sure that we never allow them to happen again.
You're doing your part to make sure that a lot of people praising the determined work that you've done on this, and I think people are appreciative of it. I want to finish up with the shutdown. It's just a temporary partial shutdown. How do you feel about it ending? Do you think there's the votes to get it done? And then I'd also like to get your reaction to some of the things that Democrats are trying to get out of this, which is a requirement, for instance, that ICE agents couldn't wear masks going forward. Your thoughts first on whether we're going to get out of the shutdown, and two, some of the concessions Democrats are fighting for.
Yeah, I do believe we'll get out of this shutdown. You know, there's no reason to shut down the government. We've already voted through these appropriations bills once already that has passed the legislature. I'm confident that we'll get them done again. And then some of these concessions they want, body cams, for example, you pointed that out in your opening monologue, is an important piece that I think all of us support. We appropriated $20 million for body cams in the legislation that has already passed, that then the Senate removed and stripped out. That's something that I think we ought to be supportive of. If the Democrats want body cams, let's start with that. As it relates specifically to masks and other things, these agents are wearing them because they're being doxxed by people in the community and by Democrats, enabling them, who are then showing up and, going to their churches and confronting them in areas outside of their job. They want to get home safe to their families. They're carrying out a legitimate purpose and a legitimate law enforcement exercise. We have to recognize that. I think having body cameras is important, but when you start putting agents at risk, that crosses a line that we have to stand and make sure that we're protecting against.
Yeah, I think most Americans are nodding in agreement when they hear you say that. Congressman, a lot of great things you're working on. We're going to check back on those constitutional amendments. I have a funny feeling they're going to catch fire pretty quickly with the American public. Great to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. If you want to see more, you can go to barrett.house.gov/reform, and we're allowing people to submit their own ideas for this reform agenda as well.
What a great idea. Let the people in on it. That's a good thing. Congressman, great to have you on. Thanks for joining us. All right, folks, we talked last week about that extraordinary raid in Fulton County, Georgia. I talked about the search warrant returns. There's so much more that the DOJ is doing right now to protect our elections. The woman that's on the front lines for that, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harvey Dillon, she's going to join us next, right after these messages. Hey, America, the FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called home title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on a single document, use a fake notary stamp, then file it with the county, and just like that, boom, they're on record as owning your home. Using your ownership, they then take out loans against your equity or even sell your property, and you're not going to know about it until you get a foreclosure or collection notice in the mail, and that's not going to be a good moment. That's why I partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can protect your equity and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code JTN at HometitleLock.com. You'll get a free title history report and a free trial. Their $1 million triple lock protection. That's a great deal. $1 million to protect your home. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud occurs, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Find out why I trust Home Title Lock. Protect yourself like I did. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. Go to HometitleLock.com and use that promo code JTN. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JTN.
Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with your Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Did you ever wonder what truly happened in the COVID-19 pandemic and whether Anthony Fauci would ever be held accountable? I think we all have. Filmmaker Jenner First has an upcoming documentary that searches for truth, transparency, and accountability called Thank You, Dr. Fauci.
Governments lie.
Anthony Fauci put everyone on the planet at risk without their consent.
It's beyond suspicious.
Research caused a pandemic, killed 20 million, and cost $25 trillion. Fauci would prefer a lie.
Public trust, national health, and global security are at stake as this documentary digs through thousands of pages of documents and interviews with former officials and whistleblowers in the most controversial narrative of our time that may also be one of the largest cover-ups in modern public health history.
There was a cover-up.
Why would he trade the Chinese the most advanced biotechnology in the world?
He's a spy.
It's insane.
I don't think this is going to be foolproof. Things are going to slip through.
Fauci knew and lied repeatedly.
Rather than being a partisan hit piece, Thank You, Dr. Fauci is an honest look at the origins of COVID-19 and a potential bioarms race with China. It streams exclusively on Angel Studios app and site starting on October 23rd. And all you need to do is go to angel.com/RAV to stream it. So be ready to watch, question, and share as the quest for truth and accountability continues.
When the lights go down, the truth comes out.
This is built like a chicken McNugget, but
This is After Hours.
Welcome back, everybody. Over the last week, if you've been reading Just the News, you've seen some very important stories. Yes, the Justice Department has arrested 9 people who intruded on a Christian mass service. They're investigating more activists who interrupted a event at a Jewish temple. You've seen numerous cases brought against states who won't clean up their voter rolls or who won't turn over their voter rolls to ensure that they are cleaned up. The person behind all of those extraordinary actions is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. Justice Department, and she joins us right now, our good friend, Harmeet Dillon. Harmeet, great to have you on the show again.
Thanks for having me, John.
All right. There's no doubt that the Attorney General, the President of the United States, and you are at the forefront of making sure that houses of worship can remain that and not become the targets of these radical protesters, these radical insurrectionists. Tell us a little bit about where we are in the process and what message you want those who want to interrupt houses of worship to hear tonight.
Well, thank you, John. This is a really important investigation for the DOJ, and it's part of a growing group of cases. We're just at about 2 weeks after the incident in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we acted very rapidly in that case. We first went to the court to try to quickly get the criminal complaint, and then the court wanted us to go to a grand jury, so we prepared that, and we went and we did that, and by the time we did that, we'd had some opportunity to investigate further and strengthen our case that was presented, and now I think the world can see the unsealed indictment that not a judge, not the DOJ, not the Attorney General, but ordinary Minnesotans agreed in a grand jury that there was probable cause to believe that at least the 9 individuals charged had committed serious crimes. And so they're presumed innocent, of course. Some of them have lawyers already, and we're going to have all of that play out in court. But there are about 30 to 40 people who interrupted that church service, terrorized children, separated children from their parents, caused people to flee in panic, a full-packed church service, and really ruined it for them and possibly scared some people out of coming back to church. And so the big picture message here, John, is that in this Department of Justice, we have a zero tolerance policy for anybody interrupting any house of worship, invading it, terrorizing people, or even just blocking them from entering or exiting or putting them in fear. And that goes for all houses of worship. And we will not tolerate it here, no matter who's doing it, no matter what they call themselves, if they're carrying a mic or whatever kind of house of worship it is, because if we allow this to stand, John, you can imagine incidents of all kinds of people of all political persuasions going into mosques and synagogues, as they have been, and other churches, and doing their protests there. You cannot do a protest anywhere you want. There are time, place, and manner restrictions under the First Amendment, and private property is generally off limits unless somebody invites you on there. So I am telling you that this is just the start of this particular investigation, and I have several others open and numerous prosecutors as well as law enforcement officials in multiple jurisdictions working on these cases.
Yeah, anyone who's in the path of those cases would know you mean serious business, and we've seen it play out. I mean, the indictment is so chock full of detail of the terror that these people felt, and also in the fact that this is a community that just was hit by a church shooting a few months before this, so they were even more mortified that maybe that was underway. Don Lemon has gone out to say, I'm just a journalist, I'm being singled out. When you look at the evidence that you presented against him, is there a legitimate claim for him to claim he was a journalist there, or do you feel strongly that he was participating along with the other people attacking that event?
Well, so first of all, there's no carve out in the statute or frankly in the law for journalists. They don't get to participate in obstructing, blocking, harassing, terrorizing, and generally conspiring to do all of the above and get away with it. And if you doubt me, look at the number of journalists that the Garland and Biden DOJ prosecuted, harassed, and went after. They did this in cases that were far weaker than the case we have here. I did not create this law. Congress created the FACE Act, and this Department of Justice under Attorney General Pam Bondi is the first in history to actually use it to protect houses of worship as it was intended originally by Congress as one of the protected categories. And so that the laws in the United States apply to journalists as well. They don't get to say, well, I'm speeding because I'm running to the scene of a protest and therefore I should get out of my speeding ticket. No, if you're part of it, and people can look at the video that Don Lemon put out himself and the other so-called journalists and judge for themselves. If somebody, you look at the indictment, when somebody is identifying as we, if somebody is turning off the cameras to make sure that parts of the conspiracy are not exposed prematurely, I think that's going to be something that a jury gets to decide at some point. So there will be more people arrested in this case. I'm confident there are many more who are involved than the ones we've identified so far. And we just will not rest for this in the United States. We'll not allow it to happen. And I'm proud of the team that worked so rapidly to give confidence and reassurance to this congregation, and indeed all congregations in the United States, that this will not stand in America.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast turnaround. People don't realize it takes time to do these things, but you guys have turned a lot around in a very short period of time. There are statutes that create enhancements for a crime if it was racially motivated. When Don Lemon came out after this, he said part of his motivation is he considered the people inside that church to be white supremacists or behind white supremacy, clearly injecting race into it. Is there any possibility that enhancements could be added because of those comments?
Look, there are all kinds of additional statutes that may or may not apply. Our job is, number one, as law enforcement, to shut this down and make sure that it doesn't happen again, to protect people exercising their First Amendment right. People forget that the right to pray in peace in America is literally one of the things that this country was founded on, and one of the key things this country was founded on. And secondly, it's protected by the First Amendment. And so that was our focus. We've done that. We've gone into court. We've arrested people. And now we're expanding our investigation, and we have a lot of tools. We'll be using those tools. This case is among the top priorities of the Civil Rights Division. And if further evidence comes to light that allows us to add additional charges, and I won't speculate which, I think you can expect those to follow.
Yeah. On the notion of where else this case could look, whether you look at the church protests or you look at the larger anti-ICE actions where law enforcement's being impeded and attacked every day, there are the people who carry out the acts that you see on camera, then there are those who fund and provide logistical and material support. If you funded or you helped arrange a church protest but you weren't there, or if you funded or you helped arrange some of these obstructions of ICE activities in Minneapolis, are you in danger of being indicted for material support?
Well, I think everything is on the table, John, but the Biden DOJ actually pioneered the use of the Klan Act, an older and important conspiracy statute, in the context of anti-abortion protests. And I've actually gone into court to defend the use of that conspiracy statute in connection with the FACE Act, and I won that case in the 11th Circuit. So anybody whose role included conspiring, whether they were there or not, could be in trouble with the United States.
Yeah, that's a very important moment. I want to turn to another important project that you work on day in. You've been doing this for years, but now in the Justice Department, it's having real impact, and that is ensuring election integrity, starting with voter rolls and then going back and looking at anything all the way back to 2020, which there was an FBI raid last week that we know for sure from the people in Fulton County was about the 2020 election. Tell us where we are in that process and where you think, what the American people should know about what you're trying to achieve with your election integrity push.
Right. So I think this is pretty straightforward. I'm surprised the amount of controversy it's created, but under the Help America Vote Act and other federal statutes, states have an obligation to keep their voter rolls clean. This is a basic concept. It applies to the integrity of our federal elections. And, a lot of states are behind in doing it. They don't use all the tools appropriate to do it. And that decreases confidence in the public. And I'm not saying this is all states. I'm saying this is many states. And so what you have is millions of ballots floating around in the mail that may be duplicates or dead people or people who aren't citizens, none of whom are entitled to vote in federal elections. So what we're doing is helping states clean up their voter rolls. And I'm happy to say that we have voluntary compliance now from 14 states. I think we're in the final stages of getting that from an additional 4 states. We have states that are we haven't quite sued them yet, but that's coming this week and next week. And then we have 24 states and one district, the District of Columbia, that I'm currently in litigation with to get their voter rolls. And those cases are in various stages. Some are moving forward, some are heading towards appeal. And we are going to keep marching forward until we either get all the voter rolls or we take this case all the way up to the Supreme Court. Because under the 1960 Civil Rights Act, the Attorney General is entitled to review and inspect this data. Now, some of the goofy responses that I've gotten from secretaries of state have included, oh my goodness, this is highly confidential Social Security information. We can't possibly give that to the federal government. I mean, John, that's just silly because the federal government, of course, issues the Social Security numbers, and people routinely give it out on a daily basis when they go to the doctor and they go to the DMV, et cetera, et cetera. That's very silly. And also, a lot of these states that are not giving the government the voter roll data, they freely give it out to liberal groups so that they can use it to chase votes and voters in a targeted way. So that's kind of two-faced to do that. Now, Georgia is one of the states where we have multiple lawsuits going for the voter rolls, but also for those Fulton County ballots. It was an unusual situation in which there was litigation there, and so Fulton County had preserved those ballots. But now one of my colleagues in the DOJ has also gone in and executed a criminal search warrant after getting a magistrate to sign off on probable cause. And so, generally speaking, John, criminal cases take precedence over civil cases in our federal system of justice. And so we're going to figure out the logistics there with the court and with our colleagues and see what those ballots show. I think it was highly unusual. A lot of things that happened in the 2020 election in the swing states, as you mentioned, I was involved in some of those as a volunteer. And so we're going to see what we see, and whatever the evidence shows. I think it's important for the American people to know what happened in Fulton County and in Georgia, and to prevent gross errors or malfeasance from happening again. I think that's just important for the integrity and confidence of the public in our elections. And my final point on this is, in the rest of the world, they don't vote this way. I mean, we like to laugh at the rest of the world being backward or what have you. Countries, the entire Brexit vote in the UK was conducted on a single day, and they got the results after, a couple hours after the polls closed. They're just these paper ballots, and they don't send ballots in the mail that can be picked up by other people or voted. They don't allow people to self-identify as American citizens. That's ludicrous. And so a lot of these things really need to be changed. But at a minimum, I think we can all agree people should be voting only once, and it should be only American citizens, and we should not be opening ourselves up for fraud. And so we are here to ensure the integrity of our elections.
I have a funny feeling that 2026 will be a very different election than the last 6 or 8 just because of the work you're doing right now. Harmeet, it's such a great honor to have you on the show. We're going to be watching closely all this stuff, including the litigation coming up later this week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, great conversation as always. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have the newest member of the Just the News Podcast Network to discuss her debut episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Minnesota's headlines are getting wild. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are being accused of massive fraud, and it's so bad, all you can do is laugh at this point. So from Real America's Music, the label that brought you the #1 hit, Anthem of the Free, comes a brand new song from singer-songwriter Natasha Owens, The Somali Waltz. Let's make the music industry mad and run this to #1. Scan the QR code or search The Somali Waltz on iTunes and buy it right now. The Somali Waltz, available everywhere.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to
get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate to
Welcome back, America. A couple of months ago, we announced a very exciting acquisition here at Just the News. The Post-Millennial and Human Events are joining our family. And I was excited because that meant I was going to get to work with one of the great journalists. I've always wanted to work more closely with her. Her name is Libby Evans. And this week, Libby started a fantastic new podcast on the Just the News podcast network. It's called The Pod Millennial with Libby Evans. And she's here to join us right now and talk about it. Libby, great to have you on the show. Congrats on the debut.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about it.
I love this. Listen, I learned in the 35, 40 years I've been covering politics that politics is downstream from culture. And what happens in culture usually trickles down. Your podcast, I think, captures that dynamic so brilliantly. Tell us a little bit about what it's all about.
Yeah, so my new podcast launched on the Just the News podcast network is The Pod Millennial. It's a takeoff on The Post Millennial, which we're also very happy to be working with you on that, John. And it is a culture podcast. That's where you can find us on iTunes and other platforms. And we're talking about what's going on in culture, everything from the Grammys to the Super Bowl halftime show to high arts and all of the rest of it. Our first guest was Michael Knowles. We had actually a fascinating conversation on our first episode that dropped this past Tuesday, and we talked about art and Dylan Mulvaney. We talked all about those things. And this coming week, starting tomorrow, our podcast is with Jack Posobiec, and we talked about the Super Bowl halftime show, and that was a great conversation. We talked about Bad Bunny and Obama and Jay-Z and how we lost the Super Bowl halftime show to corporate leftism.
Yeah, that we have. But there are new shows on the horizon, like TPUSA's alternative show that I think is going to be a big hit this weekend. I want to talk a little bit about last night's Grammy Awards, because I think we saw on display what the left's real strategy, which is they really want to be a lawless and disorderly society in America. They just don't believe in law and order anymore. How does that play with everyday Americans? I mean, everyday American, you turn on and you watch it for a little bit. What do you take away when you hear about 4 or 5 of those speeches?
Yeah, so I watched the Grammys. I tuned in. I'm always fascinated to see the ridiculous things that people are spouting off from the stage, how they think that they're still relevant, and also I'm interested in the fashion, so I checked that out as well. There were several artists who, upon receiving their awards, screamed about ICE and screamed about immigration. There were a lot of curse words flowing from Billie Eilish and Bad Bunny and all of the rest of them going out there and complaining about ICE. You'll remember, however, that this is not the first thing that they've complained about from the Grammy stage. They complained about BLM, trans, climate change, and of course Gaza and the Palestinian causes. So they are putting all of these together, and as soon as they come up with a new cause, they'll scream about that as well, because it's not really about any one of these given concepts or ideas or concerns that they have. The real point is to hate America and destabilize this country, and that's what they're all about.
Yeah. Got some big news in the culture world last night. President Trump announcing that the Trump Kennedy Center will shut down for a couple of years for some big renovations. A lot of people pondering about that today. How has that hit in the culture world?
Yeah, I think this is absolutely a terrible idea. The Kennedy Center for sure has needed renovations for a long time. That's not new. Any theater space is always ripe for changes and new dressing rooms and new draperies and new, sound equipment or what have you. But the Trump administration has 2 years. They've taken the Kennedy Center over. They could do anything with it. There are glorious performing arts spaces. Put up a little masking tape or electrical tape or whatever, and let's get the art on the boards. That's what we should be seeing. They should be doing new plays by playwrights who are not super woke. They should be doing non-propagandist performances and symphonies and operas and all of the rest of it. And I, for one, am pretty disappointed to see that they are putting the health of the building ahead of the health of the culture. We need some good artwork to be seen. We've already seen so many artists who are refusing to show their work at the Kennedy Center. Philip Glass, for one of them, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and there have been others who've said, no, absolutely, audiences who attend the Kennedy Center do not deserve to see my work because Trump is the president, and that's a problem. And so I think it's really a shame that they're not going to be delivering fresh new work to audiences who are craving it. Conservative patrons of the arts have been shut out for too long from seeing work that aligns with their values or that just simply is not propagandist art activism. And I had really had high hopes for the Kennedy Center under the Trump administration, and those have been dashed by this new news.
Yeah, there was a saying in the theater, the show must go on, but apparently not in Washington. We'll see if that turns about in a couple days with the uproar from the right. I actually think the uproar from the right is actually having an impact at the White House. It'll be interesting to see. Before we let you go, Libby, what's the best way for people to stay in touch with the great work you do at the Post Millennial and to get your great new podcast, The Pod Millennial with Libby Emmons?
You can find all the links to our new podcast, The Pod Millennial, at thepodmillennial.com. We have links to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Rumble, and YouTube, so you can check it out there. And of course, follow everything wonderful that we're doing at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com. And you can find me at Libby Emmons on Twitter.
You are amazing. I just admire your work. I wake up every morning and just read all the great stuff you do. And Libby, everybody else here should do the same. Great to have you in the show. Congrats on that podcast. Everybody, go check it out. It is fantastic. All right, coming up next, I'll tell you about a huge health issue a lot of Americans have and the easy way you can fix it. We'll have that with Mark Warner right after this.
Minnesota's headlines are getting wild. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are being accused of massive fraud, and it's so bad, all you can do is laugh at this point. So from Real America's Music, the label that brought you the #1 hit, Anthem of the Free, comes a brand new song from singer-songwriter Natasha Owens, The Somali Waltz. Let's make the music industry mad and run this to #1. Scan the QR code or search The Somali Waltz on iTunes and buy it right now. The Somali Waltz, available everywhere.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate to
Welcome back, America. If I seem a little chipper lately, and I do, it's because I've been sleeping a lot better, and that's because I recently got a ghost bed. And I got to tell you, I'm an investigative reporter. I'm trained to be doubtful about any claim, but I got this new mattress, and it has changed the way I sleep. It changes the way I wake up in the morning. It is a life-changing experience. And by the way, I never thought a mattress would make a difference. It does. And I've been doing a lot of research, and one of the things you find out is that a lot of people talk about being micro-tired. Something I felt a lot of time, being drowsy during the middle of the day, like I shouldn't be drowsy. It's where your brain's half a step behind you. Your body's heavy. You need that coffee just to get through the day. It's a real dynamic. And since I began sleeping on my new ghost bed, I am sleeping better, and I don't have that feeling anymore. Here to describe how that came to be. It's not just a piece of furniture mattress. It is a health apparatus in your family. He's the CEO and founder of GhostBed, Mark Werner. Mark, great to have you on the show again.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having GhostBed. Well, we got started.
Thank you for letting me have one. I love it. It's great.
It was great testimonial for us, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. And your problem with kind of being micro-tired on and on and on is just that little slowly you're getting bad sleep, pains here and there, and you don't realize it, and a couple years go by, and then all of a sudden you get the bright light to get a new mattress, hopefully a GhostBed mattress, and you notice it immediately how much better you feel. You got that pep back in your step. You feel better. You're not angry when you're driving. Less coffee. You're healthy because sleeping and you restore your body health while you sleep, those 7 or 8 hours. President Trump only gets 3 or 4, but he has special secret. But it's really so important to get a good night's sleep to really restore your body and to get back on an even keel. Your brain works better. If kids in school will do better, you'll work better, you'll get along better with your friends and family or anybody, just because you're better off.
I would have said until I bought my ghost bed that I would put a mattress in the category of furniture. But now I realize the experience, this really is a health device, and that's particularly the way you approached it, which is you actually have engineering that really deals with things like temperature transfer and how your body feels and how the mattress shapes to you. You really put the health into the thought of the design of this, didn't you?
A tremendous amount. I come from originally Werner Ladder, which was started by my grandfather 100 years ago. So I was raised in a highly engineered environment where my dad invented the aluminum ladder and the alloy to make it and fiberglass ladder. So I learned all that kind of stuff through the years. And then 25 years ago, I ended up starting GhostBed with my wife as a family business. But the real reason I started it was because I've had 3 neck surgeries, and I couldn't find a mattress or a pillow or anything that worked for my situation. I was always in pain. So from my engineering experience and life experience at Werner, I invented my own. And that kind of started GhostBed, and that's been a great change. And since then, we have lots of patents. We've invented cooling technologies, which I believe in your mattress, you've got the cooling technology. I mean, today it's a cool day, depending on what the temperature is in your house, what the heat is, but it makes such a difference because the body needs to be at the right kind of temperature, a little bit cooler when you sleep to get a better night's sleep. So we've patented and developed all kinds of special technologies for cooling. We've done stuff with the foams. We've done stuff with the springs, making hybrids. We've done stuff with the adjustable bases, bringing in new technologies like our new feature we'll be introducing next quarter, anti-snore in our adjustable bases. So when one of the partners is snoring, it will react to that by lifting up the base. Maybe a little bit of the massage treatment will kick in, and that person, if it's a normal snoring issue as opposed to a deviated septum, that will open up the passageway and they'll stop snoring. So you won't need the elbow from the partner, you won't need the pillow thrown at you. It'll work out just great. So that's one of our new inventions that we've come out with that we'll be introducing in a few months.
That's pretty exciting. All right, so I've seen this, and I've gotten a message like this on a DM recently on X from one of our viewers here. My wife likes to sleep on a firm mattress. I'm a more soft mattress, and she likes to be more elevated, and I'd like to be a little bit more reclined. How do you deal with spouses who sleep in the same bed but have different sleeping preferences?
Great question. That's why we really pioneered the Split King adjustable. So that's 2 twin XL adjustable bases, which 2 twin XLs makes a king, and then 2 twin XL mattresses. So you can pick a firm mattress. Your wife can pick a softer mattress. If you sleep hotter, you can go with the coolest bed in the world, one of the ghost beds, our coolest variety. She might want a medium coolness, and then springs or foam or a hybrid, and then you could have your own kind of comfort level, and you're still nice and tight together, so there's no loss of the relationship. And then on the adjustable base, you can raise your head, your legs. We've got massage, lights, electrical outlets for the USBs. So you have all the comfort creatures of a lifestyle kind of feature, and you can sleep very happily, but individualized comfort. It's a real winner. We've really been very successful with it from our website and selling it through the Costco's and the Sam's and places like that, Amazon.
Yeah, it is a game changer, and I don't say that very often. I'm pretty picky about things, and I tend to be very limited in what I say about products, but this has been really a very noticeable difference in my sleep. And the first thing I notice is that temperature change. I just feel more fresh in bed, and it always feels like I'm cooler and I'm not sweating. How did you achieve that temperature changing? Because I think that's the first thing I noticed when I slept the first night on the mattress.
So we do it a couple ways. We use a special type of phase change in the fabric of the mattress itself, so as soon as you touch it, you feel that coolness. And then what we've pioneered is using phase change material, which is an organic material that we layer on the top of the foam layer, and then you have kind of that instant cooling. So the basic principles to just kind of cool your body down 1 or 2 degrees. That's really all you need. Some people think it needs a lot more, but I always tell the story when you were a kid and you were sick and your mother took your temperature, you thought you were burning up, and she takes it and you're 99.9, 1 degree over, and that's all it is. So all you want to do is kind of modulate your temperature by 1 or 2 degrees to get you to a nice neutral position, and that works just perfectly. So we take this phase change, we put it on the foam, it pulls away the heat from your person, and it just kind of moves it aside and gets you at that normal temperature. If you actually got too cool, it would bring some of that heat back. It's a great technology. We're very proud of it, and it works wonderfully.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It literally has just changed my experience in sleeping. It makes my wife smile every night when we go to bed. It's such a great thing. CEO of GhostBed, Mark Werner, thank you personally for making my life better. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for giving a special discount to our audience. And to our audience, if you want to get the same experience I've been talking about, you want that better quality sleep, risk-free, visit ghostbed.com/justnews and put in that promo code JustNews. You get an extra 10% off. That's ghostbed.com/justnews, promo code JustNews, an extra 10% off. Go check it out. It's a game changer. I really mean that. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We've got one more block to go. We've got an artist and activist, Scott Lobato, on to discuss his plan to put a new 150-foot American flag at Ground Zero in New York City. That's how we'll finish up right after these messages.
Minnesota's headlines are getting wild. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are being accused of massive fraud, and it's so bad, all you can do is laugh at this point. So from Real America's Music, the label that brought you the #1 hit, Anthem of the Free, comes a brand new song from singer-songwriter Natasha Owens, The Somali Waltz. Let's make the music industry mad and run this to #1. Scan the QR code or search The Somali Waltz on iTunes and buy it right now. The Somali Waltz, available everywhere.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate to.
Welcome back, everybody. Before we go, as you know, almost everyone in my generation remembers exactly where they were when 9/11 occurred. It's hard to believe, 25 years ago already. There is an extraordinary opportunity to teach future generations that lesson over and over again. Joining me now, someone who's got a great idea to do that. He's a New York City-based artist and an activist, Scott Lebedo. Scott, great to have you on the show, sir.
Thanks for having me, good man.
All right, New York likes big. It's the city of the Big Apple. 150-foot flag. That's pretty big. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's people have been talking about it since the beginning, to put a big flag, appropriate-sized flag down at, not necessarily right on the memorial, but around the area. We had the Freedom Tower. The Freedom Tower went up for what? To show our patriotism, our pride. And there's not one American flag next to the Freedom Tower. There's two small flags on the property of the beautiful memorial that I finally went to see. It's very powerful, patriotic, but you can't see these flags. They get obscured by the trees in the summer and the winter and the spring. So I finally got to meet with the museum folks who gave me the opportunity to make my presentation to move forward. And as you know by now, the great Marcus Lemonis, CEO of Camping World, stepped right in when he saw my story, and he said he will pay for the whole thing, 150-foot flagpole, giant flag, installation, maintenance, everything. We got 88,000 signatures on the petition and more coming. We got heavy hitters that are starting to support this. So I don't see any problem besides the museum just getting the permission from the committee and the Port Authority. And then this flag can be up by Flag Day, July 4th, and it has to be up before the 25th anniversary of that tragic day on that most sacred, important ground in America.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Our generation, I think, really remembers what happened, but we got a lot of young people, they may not have got taught at school. Being able to have that big visual cue every day that gives an opportunity for a parent or an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent to remind a child what happened there and why we got to keep the legacy alive. Very important. What inspired you to do this? I mean, what gave you the thought that this is the way I'm going to make a contribution?
I've been a patriotic artist for my last 40 years. I saw patriotism was taboo back in the 90s, and I said, I'm going to use my art to paint American flags. You can see one of my paintings back here. I painted flags on buildings in every state throughout this country, and the flag is the most beautiful work of art. I know we're going through a lot of hell right now with patriotism, what's right, what's not. We can't do anything without that flag and those who died underneath it. So that flag should not be taboo. It should not be an embarrassment to fly it. The more, the merrier. A country that loses its patriotism ceases to become a country.
Yeah, that is right on. It's such an extraordinary moment. If people are watching and listening tonight and they want to get involved in this, how can they help you make sure this becomes a reality by Flag Day, June 14th?
Sign the petition. Go to scottlebedo.com. It'll send you right to the link. Sign the petition and share it. I can't believe we got 88,000 signatures in just 2 weeks, and it's still growing. Big names are starting to back it, from foundations, fire commissioners, politicians. Again, it's something that can be done so easily. It's all paid for, and we'll find the right spot for it. So just those of you out there, I hope that this eventually gets to the big man, Donald Trump, because he likes his big flags as well. And, a little word from him to the committee would help. Yes.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Scott, congratulations for this idea and seeing it through all the way through. A great idea. I know everyone on this show is going to be right in line for it and going to be signing that petition tonight. Thanks for joining us. All right, folks, that's all the time we got for you. We'll be back tomorrow night. I think hopefully Amanda will be rejoining us. Until then, keep an eye on justthenews.com. There may be an announcement in the next few minutes about Bill and Hillary Clinton. They folded their cards, folks. They will have to testify. They're not going to risk having contempt. That's happening over at Just News. We'll see you tomorrow.
Minnesota's headlines are getting wild. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are being accused of massive fraud, and it's so bad, all you can do is laugh at this point. So from Real America's Music, the label that brought you the #1 hit, Anthem of the Free, comes a brand new song from singer-songwriter Natasha Owens, The Somali Waltz. Let's make the music industry mad and run this to #1. Scan the QR code or search The Somali Waltz on iTunes and buy it right now. The Somali Waltz, available everywhere.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.